Hi, welcome to Pink Lion Podcast. On today's episode, I've got an exciting guest. This is somebody who I adore and came to meet very recently on a TikTok live at the beginning of actually October, because that's when I got pushed out into the live sphere on TikTok by Spirit. I'm here to welcome my guest today, Lauren. Lauren in the Wild. Yay!
Thanks so much for having me, Cindy. I'm so excited to be here.
You're very welcome. I'm so excited that you agreed to do this today. And for those of you who don't know, Lauren had an experience in the live with me and a bunch of other people, um, where this kind of broadened her horizons and awareness to spirit, to different things. And I actually wanted to ask you and just have this conversation today, Lauren, about what it is. Where did your journey start? Give us a little bit about your background and kind of take over.
Sure. I asked before we started recording, how far back do I go? I've always felt, I guess I could say, even as a small child or just up until now, I'm a very sensitive person, hypersensitive person. And so I've carried that with me through childhood and into adulthood. And I, I was raised, in a failing Catholic home, I guess I would describe it. The Catholicism was really important in the generation of my great grandparents, and then just kind of fell off through us. So I went up to, I think, my communion, but I would say, reflecting back on it as an adult, it just never really felt like the right fit to me. I didn't really necessarily relate to Catholicism, or the concept of hell, or going and confessing my sins when I was 7 or 8 years old in front of a priest in a dark closet. All of it, reflecting back now, is just a little strange to me. No offense to anyone that practices that religion. It just wasn't for me.
Right, right. Me either. I understand exactly that point.
I would say my first awakening to something other than Catholicism was actually practicing yoga. There was a really interesting yogi at my studio. It was probably middle school or high school age when I first started going. And she had traveled the world and she was a very spiritual person. And
Hmm.
that's when I sort of saw this difference of someone that was spiritual versus someone maybe who was more religious. Maybe, I hope that that makes sense to you and the
Totally.
audience. But I found a lot of comfort in practicing yoga, and that has carried through into adulthood for me as well. And meditation would come later, but that was kind of my first touch with spirituality that meant something to me. Um, and then before I graduated high school, I lost all of my matriarchs in my family. Both of my grandmothers and my great grandmother passed away before I turned 18, all very suddenly. And my whole world just felt like it was falling apart, sand falling through my fingertips. I couldn't grasp on anything. I was so lost and confused. And those first experiences with death are just so transformative in your life. I'm sure everyone can relate to that. It was really, really difficult. And
Totally.
my mom's mom, we called her Mama, so that's what I'll call her here. Um, I remember her dying. She was in hospice, and it was just this really traumatic, quick death. And I was just recalling this with my mom the other day. I remember nothing about her services. Like, I remember her dying in hospice, and I remember being at her gravesite, and nothing in between. I don't remember. It's like a blank. It just was so traumatic that I don't recall much. But one of the things we were just talking about was, after her service, we had an after a luncheon at a Polish restaurant back where I'm from, and we didn't know this woman. We tried to think back to who it was, but we don't remember who it was. Someone that worked probably for the restaurant, that told us, just watch out for the pennies. You're going to start finding pennies. And we were like, yeah, okay, lady,
What?
whatever you say. And sure enough, um, all of the women in my family, is primarily who it affected, were finding these pennies in really odd circumstances. Um, Mama died in November, so our first kind of family gathering was Thanksgiving that year. And we had just gotten a puppy. He was a little chihuahua, tiny, tiny little thing. And we're all just kind of sitting around gathered in the living room before we had dinner. and Toby comes trotting out, and the Chihuahua, and he's chewing on something. And of course, like they're just at the age where they're chewing on everything. And we rush over to figure out, what's in his mouth, what's in his mouth. And it was a penny. And
Oh,
so that was the
wow.
first instance where we were all kind of like, geez, of all things, that's kind of weird.
Yeah,
And then if it's happened once, it's happened 1,000 times. And I always feel funny telling people about it because you get kind of that judgment of like, yeah,
yeah,
it's a coincidence. They don't, I find this penny and it means something to me, and it's it's frustrating when people kind of like laugh it off or don't believe. But I've come to a point now where I don't need anyone to believe me. Like I believe it. I know that's mama.
right.
And I've shared a couple with you in the past, but if I can go on my penny tangent, there was just a couple that have really stood out to me, and one that was very recent. I think I talked about being in college, I would find them a lot. And I went to a big university and I was always the punctual person, as soon as the last class would leave, I'd go and find my seat and sit down, and I like to be on the end. Um, so out of a 400 seat lecture hall, I would go, I'd drop my bag, I'd sit down, and I'd look down, and there'd be a penny under my seat. And how do you explain that? I could have picked any seat of 400 seats, and I pick one where there's a penny underneath my chair. So this has happened. My mama died. It's been 15 years, 16 years, and it still happens. And I know it's her. Most recently, I've had a little one, and it brings me great comfort to know that she knows about my son and knows about what's going on in my life.
Mhm.
And he had this little rubber ducky that I got out of the Target bins for $1 or $2, and it was a rubber ducky that looks like a cow, and we just got a kick out of it, and we call him Moo Duck. And that's one of his first words. That's what he was for Halloween this year, was a cow, because it was just so significant to us, this little moo moo duck. And we lost it. I couldn't find it anywhere in the house. And you know how it is when you have a toddler, like there's just things everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was driving me nuts that I couldn't find this little cow duck. And something came over me one day. I wanted to just tidy up in my bedroom, and I had a bag there sitting since my birthday in April. It was my birthday bag. It had just been there collecting dust and needed to be put away. I'm like, that's going to be my project today. And I pick it up, and sure enough, there is Moo Duck just sitting right underneath a gift bag. I can't explain how it would have gotten there. And right next to the duck was a penny. And like, I mean, you can't convince me otherwise that is not her. She found that duck, and I try to, my logical brain tries to like figure it out. Like, how did this all, come to be? And maybe it was, my son brought it in there and dropped it, and I didn't see and didn't notice. I don't know how it got kind of wiggled down there. And we have a change jar over in that part of the house. Maybe my partner came in and threw his change and a penny popped out, or who knows? But those two pieces were sitting there on the floor, and I can't explain it, but I know that was her.
Right, because then you had to have the thought to, like,
Yeah.
look there, right, out of nowhere, and boom, there it is. Well, she can be responsible for both all those pieces kinda coming together, but also coming into your awareness in this very subtle way to point you in the right direction. That's how it works. So you're right. There are no coincidences. And of course, I'm not going to convince you because I believe you. I believe in these signs, and I 100% believe that all those pennies over the years were her. I believe that. I just lived this, so I get it. But go ahead
It's
and
all
continue.
things. The day of my baby shower, I have a special connection with birds to both my grandmother and my grandfather. They were kind of my primary caregivers while both of my parents worked while we were young.
Mhm.
They looked after my brother and I, and I have it. My mom has given it to me. It was actually my dad's book. It's this really old book that he wrote his name in, and it's all about birds. And that's what we would do. They had a bird feeder out back, and we'd sit and use, why is the word escaping me, binoculars, to look out the window and look and see what birds were there. And she taught me what a cardinal and a blue jay were. And uh, those were special birds that we would try to see at the bird feeder. So when I see them, I immediately think of them. And I know that that's a common sentiment, but maybe that's the way it should be. You know, a cardinal means a lot to a lot of people, and I think that's really beautiful. But the day of my baby shower, I went outside to let the dog out before the festivities began, and there was a cardinal and a blue jay, one of each, just kind of perched just around the corner, and they kind of followed me. I walked with the dog, like I noticed that they were there, and I talked to them. Maybe that makes me a little
No,
cuckoo to some people, but I do. I say, "Hi, grandma. Hi, grandpa. Thank you so much for like showing up for me today.
that's
I
right.
wish you could be here." And it was just such a, how do you explain that? How do you explain that one of each species of these birds are flying in close proximity, and just as I went, they would fly to the next tree and kind of led me home as well. And I snapped a picture of it because it just, that was their way of saying, "Hey, we're here today, and we know that you've got a little baby in there, and pretty soon he's going to be earthside with you." So
Right, and they're showing up for you in very meaningful ways, and so oftentimes people will dismiss it as coincidence or give me a break, they're just birds or what have you. But that's not how spirit works. Spirit
so the
works when
signs and synchronicities have just overtaken my life at this point. It's really spiraled down to the point of, I don't know how I landed on your TikTok that fateful evening, but and I'm curious to know, you had called me up. So I wasn't a spirit led in that initial one. You had called me up, and I've always kind of wondered in the back of my mind, did you kind of know that you needed to talk to me, or did you have any kind of, was it just a matter I was in your room and you wanted to invite me up, or
so
it
you were
it was
part
my
of.
grandmother's birthday. That's how I knew it was so significant,
Okay,
because
I'll
it
tell
was it
you,
was
I
her birthday.
remember. I remember very specifically because I remember I think that was day 4 or 5 that I had gone live when you actually came up. So the very first night I was doing spirit led, but you were in my room. You came into my room, I think fairly early. So you might have heard the Jamie reading where her son was taking responsibility for his
I
own
think, yeah, I do
passing.
remember that. Yeah.
So she was like the third person in my room, and he's the one that nudged me and pushed me out into the TikTok live, right? So I saw your handle, and like for whatever reason I remembered it. And like your engagement was always so positive and like you were talking to me. You weren't asking me
Those
for
first few
anything.
days, I was, like, willing. I was like, "Oh, please come through, please come through, please come through."
And the thing is though you were very, I don't know, just very positive and like, but you weren't like begging or you weren't doing those typical energy drainers things. So I, for whatever reason, checked it off in my mind as like, I hope that she gets a reading at some point, right? So a few days go by and you were loyally coming in, coming in, coming in. And I thought to myself, this person is worthy of getting a reading. That's how I felt. I felt this person is worthy of having a reading. And I feel like she wants to hear from somebody. And then I turned it over and I was confused on what I was getting. So I just allowed Haley to just kind of go and do her thing because what I was getting, I didn't want. It's hard for me. It was hard for me. So I was trying to understand it, not because the information was difficult, the subject matter was difficult, but like I was processing that because I want to get it right. And then she took over because she's so fast with everything, but I read differently. I read for meaning and I read for understanding the story and like why they're coming in. And so she does things that rattles off different evidence, which is totally fine. That's the way she does it. But for me, I was doing it very differently. So that's kind of the difference, but that's how it kind of went through in my head where I pinged on you and I was like, this one, this is the one that I want to pull in.
And I just can't imagine that that's any coincidence that that was my grandmother's
It's not,
birthday.
it's
You know,
intuition.
she needed to get me a message that has been really, really healing. And, I've talked to you several times now that life just feels different now. Um, After
Yeah,
that, and we had a private reading as well. And can we talk a little bit about
sure.
the
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 mood deck.
the, the first the first message in the private reading, um, well, let me back up. Another thing that makes me sound a little bit cuckoo, but I knew I was having this reading the next afternoon.
Sure.
So I set up, like, I guess you'd call it like an altar, my whole kitchen table of all just things that help me feel close to all of my deceased relatives. And I had to arrange it just right. And even snapped a picture of it. I was like, I'm going to just tuck all this stuff away, but it's nice to kind of just see their pictures and all these little items. And the last thing I did for the night while my son was asleep was I just felt like I needed to add a candle, and I didn't want to leave anything burning overnight. So I have like a little electric one. So I put this candle in this little vase on the table and just lit it and set an intention of, I really hope that I can get a message from my team up there uh, tomorrow. And that was the last thing I did before I went to bed. And little Miss Cindy, we sit down and she says to me, the first thing out of her mouth, well, I see a candle. Okay. I was just like, I threw my hands in the air like, yep, here we go. And it was a wild ride from there. But the whole metaphor of the candle, and we can talk a little bit about that. I think that message that you shared with me about the candle and finding the light and being the light is really, it was really healing for me, and I'm sure it's really healing for a lot of people. But it blew me away. That was 100% the confirmation I needed to know that they were there.
Would it be okay if I shared that piece of the reading? If it's not okay, we don't have to. But
Sure, absolutely.
so, everybody who's listening, what I was seeing was a candle in the window, and it was on the inside of the window, right? Or of this house. So, this house, this room, there's this window, and outside it's cold and dark. But inside there's a light on from a candle, and the candle is illuminating the dark. Dark can't tap out light, but light can tap out dark. And it felt warm inside and comfy and cozy. And this is what I was telling her, like this metaphor for maybe how she was feeling. Inside, she was feeling warm and like there's light illuminating, but there's so much cold and darkness around her, surrounding her. And so I also felt like she could be the light in the window, attracting other people, right, to that light. But for her, she needed to find the light too inside of her. So this was interesting. I think that was right. Is that right? Is that what?
Yeah, it really resonated with me, and I got a little pendant, a little candle pendant that I wear
That's
around my neck
great.
every day. I actually, after the reading, I said, I've never had a tattoo in my life. I'm 31 years old. And I always said I would only get a tattoo if something really meant something to me.
That's right.
And my first instinct was I called my girlfriend to tell her all about it. And I said, she has a lot of tattoos. So I said, will you come, come fly here and we can go get a tattoo? She said, I want you to think about it for a little bit. I said, okay, fine, I'll get a necklace. I'll get a necklace and we'll think about the tattoo of doing something permanent. But it really meant a lot to me, that message.
Okay, well, when I come to Florida, if she hasn't come to get the tattoo with you, I'll get one with you. Let's get it on our
Perfect.
wrists.
That's where I was.
Little
Stop it. That's
candles.
where I was going to get it.
Yay!
Was on my wrist, on the
We
inside
are
of my wrist.
connected. So, what this all meant for Lauren, for all of you, is Lauren had been battling some internal struggles, some depression, some things that are private to her. But why that was so important and significant for her is because she needed to focus more on the candle, the light, versus the cold darkness. And that's what Spirit was trying to tell her. So it switched something. It's like almost she was outside looking in, she was inside now looking out. It was like this switch. It was like a light switch that happened simply because she started her healing journey in a very meaningful way. And she was able to tie all her experiences together with that one reading. It's not just one thing. It's like all these things that accumulate over time. These quote unquote coincidences that are not really coincidences. I'm sure you no longer believe in coincidences. I no longer believe in them. I always think things are meant to be and things are aligned. You're either aligned or you're not. You're either walking the path or you're not, and so when you start to walk it, open it up, things start to happen. Synchronicities is one of those things, and I just want to talk about what have you been experiencing with like yesterday, I literally got up at 3. I then picked up my phone at some point. It was 3:33. Put it down. Next time I pick it up to check something, it was 4:44. I'm like, "Okay, gotcha. Thank you."
I get 11:11, and I have for years and years and years. I mean,
Really?
it happened today. I would say it's almost daily
Wow.
that it's 11:11. At least once a day. Like truly, I look at the clock at
So
11:11.
what does that mean to you? Because like oftentimes people look at angel numbers, but I don't think that's what it means. I think it's something more about personal like messaging coding with your guides or spirit team. So what does it mean
Absolutely
for
think
you?
that. To me today when I looked at the clock at 11:11, I was listening to the podcast that you had sent, the Anthony Chin podcast.
Love his stuff.
So to me that means, oh, I'm like, here's another example of like I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right things. Um, we in this particular one, it was super interesting, right? It's all about how they have a lot of like PhDs and scientists and neuroscientists working on this very subject, on things that can't be seen, on consciousness. I just kind of to dove in, and so much of that resonated with me that it's no surprise to me that I happen to just glance, pick up my phone, click it on, and it's 11:11 as I'm listening to this podcast. I was meant to be doing that. I'm here, working on my painting, listening to this podcast, and I view the clock then to know you're on the right path, Lauren. Like that is absolutely what it means to me, is that I'm making the right choices. I'm in alignment with myself
Yeah, that's good. You're
and
following
with
the
the universe.
breadcrumbs. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're following those breadcrumbs, right? They're in the right path. They're taking you down that path. I love that. I love that
Well,
for you. And for
what was really
those
interesting, oh yeah, sorry.
I was just gonna say, and for those wondering, it's called Who We Are by Anthony Chaney, and you can find it on YouTube, or wherever else he posts his documentary style videos, which are fabulous
Yeah, they're
and were
awesome.
a great source for me when I was going through my journey and I wasn't sure what was going on. I mean, it's so confusing at the beginning. He was a great source. NDEs were a great source for me to turn to because I felt like those people walked paths that may not ever walk. And so they are witnesses to things that I could not understand but was experiencing. So I felt a connection to NDEs, near death experiences.
You are, the person that kind of put me on that path. Of course, I've heard of NDEs before, but you had mentioned you should check
Yeah.
this one out. You gave me a title of a specific one, and I watched that one. It was just, I still have like, I screen recorded little bits of that first. I think it was the Helen one, whatever her last name is. And I still have them on my phone and I watch them every day. Like there's just little pieces of like, I need to remind myself of this. I don't want to forget this. I feel so inspired by listening to people's near death experiences. That's how I take my son and my dog on a walk every morning, and whatever YouTube recommends to me, that first one of whatever the first one is, that's the one that I think I need to hear that message today. And that's the one we walk around the neighborhood and listen to.
Yeah,
And I always say my neighbors probably think I'm crazy because I mean, it brings me to tears. I mean, they really are.
yeah, they're
It's
inspiring.
really beautiful. Yeah.
It is beautiful, and I think it's because you're coming into your remembrance, right? Where it's like your soul is remembering where you come from. It's remembering what you're here to do. It's remembering all these things, and your human brain is just trying to process it because the frequency at which we are at there versus here, they're two totally different frequencies. We are much lower in vibration here than we ever are there. And so I feel like it's going to take time to collect all the information, to continue to work on yourself, to continue to turn inward for the answers versus how we're taught to look outward from institutions, religious institutions, government institutions. Like different systems set up to indoctrinate us or point us in certain ways, like you must do this. You were talking about your Catholic faith at the beginning. I also have that shared experience. And so with the Catholic faith, and for me, I just never want any one priest, parishioner, like pastor, anyone telling me what I can and cannot do. That is not freedom. That is not freedom. That is not allowing your free will to take place. If you really think about that, they're forcing an ideology on you and telling you and trying to control you on good versus evil or bad versus right, good, like all these different things. Like you will be punished if you don't think this way. The fuck is that? Seriously.
It's really sad. And the one thing I really admire about
So
folks
I
that are
just said it.
religious and go to church and things, it could be such a beautiful thing. Like to congregate
Totally.
is so
Totally.
beautiful. If the messaging were just a little, well, I would tweak the messaging a little bit
And
if I were
maybe
in
there
charge.
are some parishioners who do the right thing and allow their, congregants to like come up with their own decisions and make their own choices. But there's a lot out there that are trying to control people. And like, that's my thing. It's like God would never do that. And when you return to remembrance, you understand that. Because even with your 1111s, even with those synchronicities, it's like what it means to you. You're saying, "Oh, I'm making the right choices." So it's like a little nudge, like, "Yep, you're on the right track. Good job," instead of you must do this or you're going to go to hell. Like, I don't know. It just never made sense to me. And so if people believe that, that's fine. Like they can have their own beliefs. Like I just, for me, it doesn't connect. It doesn't fit. It doesn't make sense to me. So
I think it all boils down to, I hear you say this a lot in your lives, is are you going to live in fear or in love?
that's right.
I mean, why would we all want to live in fear that we're, going to be banished to hell? It's very dark. It's very dark.
But what is fear? Like fear is a lot. That's a lot of different branches that come out from fear. And I see it a lot going on right now with division. And it's like, luckily, there are people out there leading with love, like yourself, like myself. There are people wanting to help others through this food crisis thing going on right now. And I just see a lot of good. And so I have hope. I have hope for humanity, but there's a lot of people trying to control and claim that power from individually yourself. And I worry about that. But I also trust. I trust in what it needs, what will be, will be. Like we're all here to learn these lessons. So I trust that. But I have a question for you. It might blow your mind. And it's probably a little like controversial for my 15 viewers. What is the second coming of Christ? What does that look like? I want you to think about it. Is it literally like a person coming back to earth? Or could it be a Christ consciousness returning to the front and center?
I certainly hope it's the second. I
I would
One
think
of
it
the NDEs I just listened to as well, she talked about how overwhelming it can feel to see all that is in the world that is so dark and not going well, that
right.
if you come across and meet folks that have awakened or have this light, she also used a candle reference, like we're each a flame. And if all of those flames can be lit, we can drive out this darkness. It is the it's the ripple effect. It's small, tiny actions that we can all take that would drive that change. So I certainly hope it's the latter. I mean, even I don't have didn't have a great answer to your question because I just feel so disconnected from I like the word Christ, or even I even struggle with the word God. I'm through watching some NDEs, I've become a little more comfortable with the term, but I just feel like it's so much bigger than any one person or one figurehead
It
or
is.
one. I don't.
It really, really is. And the more you'll go into this, the more like when you keep turning inward, like you're going to realize the magnitude, but you are part of that magnitude. You are not separate from it. Okay. So you are it. When you start to realize that, then it's like you don't fear very much at the end of the day. All the old systems of thought kind of break down, which is already starting to happen for you. Your reality changes like overnight. It's incredible. And you could maybe talk a little bit more about that because it's almost like an instantaneous switch, right? We talked about that just a few minutes ago. When it happens, it's like you cannot unsee it.
You can't unsee it. That's the perfect way to put it. That candle out now, I'm holding it and it's right here. The light is shining from within me and it can't I can face darkness with more confidence and I don't feel that same fear that I had. That darkness, even in that podcast we were just talking about, they talk a lot about how we are the creators of our own reality. And
That's
so
right.
that darkness that I lived through all of my 20s, I know I had a hand in that.
That's
I was
exactly correct.
creating that reality. At the time, I would have told you up and down that I was a victim of my circumstances.
Yeah.
But I look at it now with such a different viewpoint that I wasn't the victim. And I feel so sorry for that person that was really struggling and feeling that way. And I wish I could have felt this way sooner or discovered it this sooner. And I've told you before, I've been to countless like therapists to try to untangle all these knots and and try to find my way. And and maybe others out there can resonate too. Like you leave therapy like, yes, I do. I feel better afterward, but what do I do with it? It was almost like I want more homework. I want to feel better faster. I want to figure this out. And and meeting you and knowing you has really helped me. I want you to know
Oh,
that you are a healer, and knowing you and interacting with you has changed my life. And
all I've
it's the
done
little
is
things. It's go listen to this NDE. Go take a walk. I mean, now I look at my walk as like my ritual. Maybe I don't sit in a church pew, but my ritual is I go out and I connect with nature and I bring my son out into nature and set an intention for our day. What is our day going to look like? What is it going to feel like inside of this home? I feel a very profound sense of purpose being a mom, and
yeah.
I really wanna get it right. That type A person in me is like, I'm battling, like, trying to be a perfectionist because I know that that's not possible, but I want to
That's
that
funny.
that podcast talks again, like, we program the subconscious of our children through our actions. They spend years not they don't they're learning by watching us and how they feel around us.
That's
And
right.
I want him to feel that love and that light and not the fear and the worry and the anxiety and the stress. And I don't want him to feel those emotions.
The programming was exactly what I was talking about, like indoctrination from the institutions, the this, that, the other. It's like all of it is programming. It's total programming. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And so,
Yeah.
therefore, you break walls or barriers down without even realizing it, and you open your world up. So, walking is important, opening your five senses, because that puts you a return to self, like, and opening up your world and kind of trying to, I don't know, see, feel, hear, taste, all those things at a much more minute level. Is that even a word? Minute? I guess a sharper level. Maybe minute isn't a word. I don't know. I'm not going to stress it,
That's exactly it. I mean,
but
on these walks, I take the
it's
same path every
truly,
day and everything is clearer. I notice the way the trees blow in the wind. You know, the world looks more beautiful than it ever has.
yeah.
And
And the thing
it
is,
seems so silly.
you're shifting your mindset. When you shift your mindset, you change the reality of your world. That's what it means by you're the creator of your own reality. And what I was talking about, we keep ourselves in our own chains, right? Have the key to those chains to release them. It's our thoughts. Our thoughts dictate our path, literally. And you always have the ability to be the light in the window, the candle in the window, to lead the way or to shine or to illuminate out that darkness. I bet that darkness seems way distant now than it ever has, and the light from the illuminated candle in that room is totally bright in that room because I just feel it from you. You do not feel weighted. You feel light and energetic, but This is what I'm talking about. This is like that consciousness opening up. What is that? How do you return to it? So you said, I have a hard time with God or Jesus or this, that, and the other. Jesus was a real person and he really is an ascended master. And God, you could name God creator, the highest one, source, God, whatever label you want to put on is what it is, but you are also that. We all are. That's the truth. And people have a very hard time wrapping their head around it. And I've talked about the ocean, the cup, the drop of the water from the cup from the ocean. We all separate from its original source, but when you put them back together, they all are still part of that ocean water or the same source. That's what this is. You are very much a part of that coming back onto line. Where was I going with that? See, I lose track just like you. We're going down different things here, but the point is that your journey has gotten you here. You've seen things that you can't unsee. You now take your meditative walks. You're viewing things differently there. You're applying these things to your home base. And I think the point is when you were in counseling, why it felt good. And by the way, there's not much different from what I'm doing than what counselors do. They don't tell you what to do either. They tell you you have the answers within you. They just don't realize, I think, what they're actually saying, but everybody has the ability to find those answers within themselves. They just need to listen better. And that listening is so soft. It's a whisper or it's a subtle thing that we're trying to listen or pay attention to that sometimes we miss it. So, what are your instincts telling you now? What have been those subtle whispers that you're now more in tune to?
The first thing that jumps to mind is the other day. I mean, it's basically always sunny and beautiful where I live,
Of
which
course.
I'm very grateful for. I can get out and walk. I'm from a cold weather winter climate, so I appreciate being able to get outside. And this particular day, I woke up and it was gray and moody. It wasn't raining, but it was just. I looked out the window and thought, "Oh, it looks like rain. I don't think I'm going to get to go on my walk." And then my you know, human brain was just like, "Oh, yeah, let's skip it today." And there was something. I don't know exactly what, but I thought, this is my ritual. This is what I've been doing every day. Like I have to just go. I need to just get up. And even if we get rained on, we get rained on. I can't go that far. We'll get rained on. It'll be a good experience for my son nonetheless.
Let them play in
So
the
I
rain.
get up. Yep, I get up. We get all loaded in, and sure enough, by the time like we started on our walk, the first push of the stroller, the entire walk was beautiful and sunny and gorgeous, and all of that meant to me, like I got frustrated with myself of like, why did I almost let my brain talk me out of this walk, this beautiful experience that I'm having right now? And there was just that little whisper, that little nudge of just get up and go, Lauren. Like go and take your walk. It's important to you. It's important that you do this for yourself. And
It's good.
and so it was.
It reminds me of just taking that little bit of time for self-love, right? Because we can give love to so many other people. We can put our attention on so many other things, but we don't, as women, as moms, we tend to not put that attention on ourselves. And you did that day. And maybe that was your higher self. Maybe it was a guide. I don't know. But that whisper you paid attention to, and that's really important because it made you take care of yourself.
And I think that's the most important piece that I've learned of all of it is yes, it's critically important that we love one another and we find love in our life. But I truly understand now that if I can't love myself, all of that is secondary. It's
Yeah.
most important that I love and I'm comfortable with myself so that I can freely give love to others. And I've heard that said to me 100 times throughout my life. Why is it clicking now at 31 years old? I don't know. Um, it's that's where it all starts for me, and I think for anyone, you have to get to a point. I'm hoping that all of these things, little synchronicities, all of it is coming into alignment so that I can love myself, so that I can feel close to others, close to this oneness, to source, to the light, whatever whatever we choose to call it.
Right. Yeah. And the thing is you will get there. Okay. If you keep walking the path, it's going to happen because you can't unsee what's already there. The problem I think you might have, and loving yourself is a good thing to do, but you have a little one. That little one at this stage prevents you from having those quiet, still moments that you need in order to
Yes.
connect and meditate and like really get in there. So maybe just be kind to yourself and say, for now, while I'm in his care, like I'm in charge of his care, I need to do it this way instead of when he goes to school, I'll be able to spend a little time to connect with source, God, creator, whatever. But I'm going to trust that this is going to be okay for right now. However, you said something when you're like, oh, I want to be able to help people. And I was thinking, yeah, you're the candle in the window. That's why I was seeing it from both views, both sides, one side and the other. You're going to light the way for a lot of people. And I don't
I hope
think you should
so.
ever cut yourself short. Who knows what that timing will look like? Because it's not on our time, it's on divine timing, I believe. But whatever that is, you're gonna light the path for a lot of people. So don't cut yourself short because you are shining so brightly. Like just seeing you on this particular call versus our reading, like it is a
I feel
hundred
better.
degree different.
I feel a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel better to me too. Like your energy, I can feel it. It is pure white light, and so that's really, really good. Um, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about? Because we're talking about synchronicities, but then of course we get going and we're like here and
My
there and here and
final
there.
my final little synchronicity that I want to share, I think that's what I would call it. It's a sign and synchronicity, but it's just too weird not to share. I felt compelled to text you and tell you about it because it was so meaningful to me. The marbles.
Yeah.
I should go and get them.
Yeah.
I have a pasta jar of these old, hopefully folks will know what I'm talking about, but I guess back in the day they were like my grandmother like kept them on the dresser. We weren't always allowed to play with them. They were kind of like up on the dresser, and every now and again she would say to me and my brother, "You guys want to play with the marbles?" And they're these old glass marbles. They're beautiful. And we would pick out our favorite ones. We'd sit on the floor and play with them. And then, we put them all back in and they lived on the dresser. And I haven't really thought about them in a long time. And my parents just moved down here, and of course they're a lot of my things have been living in totes in their basement. So they're trying to clean their space. And I'm acquiring a lot of things that have lived with them for a while. And I'm going through these totes and I find this jar of marbles. And I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about these in years. I was so excited to find them. And I made them a part of my little altar on the kitchen table before our private reading. And that's where they stayed for a couple days because my intention was to kind of pack all that stuff away, particularly before my partner got home, because he would probably think like, what is all this stuff doing on the table? And it didn't happen. And so sure enough, he came home and my whole altar is still set up and these marbles are there. And he picks them up and he goes, oh my gosh, my grandmother used to have marbles just like this. And we thought that was just kind of funny. And so that day, I mean, it was probably right around the time he picked them up and made the comment, like, oh, I used to play with these when I was a child, and put them back down. His grandmother had texted him, and all she said was, hey, I have a question for you. Can you call me? This was early afternoon. So we got about our day. And later, toward the evening, he decides it's time to call Graham. And so he calls her. He takes our son in the other room and he calls her. They were going to FaceTime. And he goes, oh my, can you hold on a second? Can you say this again for Lauren? And he came out to me and he goes, okay, Graham, go ahead. Say what you're going to say to Lauren. And she goes, well, I was just sitting here and I was wondering if you used to play with these marbles when you're a kid. Maybe your son will want them. Would you like the marbles? And we both looked at each other like, what in the world? Like he lost all the color in his face. Like
Yeah.
it really got to him. He said, Lauren, I haven't said the word marbles in 15 years. Like what's with the marbles? It really got to him. And I sat back and thought about it. My grandmother passed in 2010. I mean, it's been so long, but she must have put that thought in my partner's grandmother's head to talk about these marbles. I mean, that is not a coincidence. And the message to me was, wow, like we really through all the chaos that's going on in our life, losing our marbles, like here
Yeah.
we are. And we have this shared thread from our childhood. You know, there's so much that we don't see eye to eye on, but here are these marbles. And for some orchestration happened. Like what's impressive to me is clearly my grandmother up there knows who my partner is, who his grandmother is, and found a way to make this connection for us, this marble connection. And that just blows my mind because these are my grandmother died before I ever knew my partner, or, you know, she certainly didn't know his grandmother. And, but they know. And so that was just the most recent and the most powerful thing that's happened to us recently. It was this marble story, and we still kind of can't get over it.
You know, sometimes those stories come in because they're meant to like bond you a little bit closer and like help you with your current relationships, whatever that is or means to you. Do you find that that actual synchronicity happened to help the two of you?
I think so. And I think he was kind of confused. I actually ran out into the kitchen when you and Haley called me up onto live, and I said, I'm gonna talk with a medium. I'm gonna talk with a medium." And he was just like, "What's a medium? I don't know what you're talking about." And he left to go do something else. And then, of course, he comes home, and I have this whole altar on the table, and he's kind of just like
What is going on
supportive,
with
but just
you?
like, What is going on?" And I think the marbles, it almost like
Helped him see.
yes, it helped him understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and yeah, I maybe he doesn't quite get all of it, but it certainly connected us.
He's
This
probably thinking you've lost your marbles and your grandmother like was like, "No, she hasn't. Let me show you."
yeah, and it's funny. Mine are kept in an old, cleaned out like pasta jar,
Yeah.
and his grandmother's are in a old Folgers can. And he said to her on the phone, I'm listening, and he goes, I want you to keep them just like that, Graham. Can you just keep them in that sack and keep them in the Folgers can? Like that's how he goes, that's exactly how I remember them. And David, he remembers nothing. He has a terrible memory. He would admit this as well. He doesn't remember what he ate for breakfast yesterday. So like he certainly isn't thinking about marbles from 20 years ago. And
Right.
so he was able to recall such a visceral childhood memory to this Folgers can of marbles. And I think that was really cool for him too.
Yeah, and also, there's some more layered stuff we can talk about with that situation and how our subconscious remembers things, especially with nostalgic stuff. So there's more at work there. I love that story. I think it's really cool. And also it doesn't make me feel alone because I had all these synchronicities too with the orchestration. I mean, you read the book, so you know. You are totally aware of my story. But more happened after that. Book 2 is still being written.
Too. We're excited. I can't wait to read it.
I mean, it's been nuts. And so, like, just keep documenting, keep watching, and keep being amazed by it because every time I do a reading, every time I have a connection like ours, it just keeps amazing me. I'm like, oh my God, there's a reason we're meant to kind of talk about.
Dedicated little notepad in my phone, and that's where I jot it all down because it gets to a point where like you would it's unbelievable. You know,
Well, that's why there are
it's
no
really cool.
coincidences. When they start stacking up as many as they do, it's like, at what point are we gonna start calling them synchronicities? Because they can't just be coincidences anymore when they are just one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. It's just like, you're not making it up. So, anyway, I appreciate you so much coming on to talk to me about your experiences today. I've loved our conversation. I might ask you to come back in a few months if you keep getting more and more and more to see how you've kind of, I don't know, kind of walked along this path of yours and see where you're at, see where it's taken you.
Absolutely. I'm game anytime. I've full disclosure, I've never been invited to a podcast before. And she asked me and I kind of was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. But here we are. I think it's important that we have these conversations. And I'm
You too.
excited to see who else you have on and listen to their stories and
Yeah,
participate in your lives. I think what you're doing is really helping a lot of people. It's really beautiful. So thank you, Cindy, and thanks for
yeah,
having
you're
me.
welcome. I'm just trying to normalize this so that we all don't feel crazy and we can talk about it more because there are more of us than we know. And I just think that we need to talk about it because everybody's getting lit up consciously, you know? That's why I was like, the Christ conscious thing is like more at play here than we think. And you and I can have an offline discussion about that because it's deep. And it
Sure.
also goes to my past life regression, hit the hypnotherapy too. There's a lot there to unfold, but you read that as well. So you know, I went down the hole. All right. Well, I'll let you go. Uh, appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on today. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.